My name is Sunniva.
And my name is Ida.
And we have the country New Zealand. We're going to start with the history. The history of New Zealand dated back at least 700 years to when it was discovered and settled by Polynesians, who developed a distinct Maori culture centered on kingships, links, and land. The first European explorer to sight New Zealand was Abel Jansuan Tasman on December 13th, 1642. Captain James Cook, who reached New Zealand in October 1769, was on the first of these three voyages, was the first European explorer to circumnavigate and map New Zealand. From the late 18th century, the country was regularly visited by explorers, other sailors, missionaries, traders, and adventurers. In 1840, the Treaty of Waitangi was signed between the British Crown and the various Maori chiefs, bringing New Zealand into the British Empire and giving Maori equal rights with British citizens. There was extensive British settlement throughout the rest of the century. The reason how New Zealand became an English-speaking country is because the country discovered and settled by English foreigners, and also because of the British settlers. The reason why they are English-speaking country is because New Zealand became one of the British colonies, and because many English foreigners settled in New Zealand. So it was easier to learn English to communicate with the foreigners. But in some places they still have Maori language. The Treaty of Waitangi was signed in 1840, so I think this started to be an English-speaking country in the 1800s because of the treaty. But maybe some people in New Zealand started to speak English a long time before the treaty to communicate with the foreigners.
There are several different languages that are spoken in New Zealand, but English is the most spoken language and is the dominant language of most New Zealanders. The country's other official languages are Maori and New Zealand's sign language. There are also some other languages used by ethnic groups, and Maori is used in New Zealand. Maori became an official language in 1987, while in April 2006, New Zealand became the first country to declare sign language as an official language, alongside with Maori. New Zealand's sign language is the main language of the deaf community in New Zealand. Maori is only used in New Zealand, even though the language has an official status. The language struggles against being lost. It is only recently that the Maori language has gathered widespread support. In the present, the Maori language is commonly used in the media and at schools. A recent survey by the government showed that around 130,000 out of 4.4 million speak some Maori. In 2013, there was significantly more English speakers than speakers of any other language. English had over 25 times more speakers than the second place Te Reo Maori. There are also some cultural attractions and places where you can visit to meet the Maori people and learn about their heritage, traditions, and try their foods.
New Zealand is a constitutional monarchy with a parliament. They are an independent state, but they are also a part of the Commonwealth. That means that Queen Elizabeth is their head of state, but since she can't always be in New Zealand, she is represented by a government general. They also have a prime minister who is called John Key. New Zealand is a democracy and they have an election every 3 years. The economy is mainly dependent on international trade, especially with Australia and the European Union, China and South Korea. New Zealand has an agreement with Australia called the Closer Economic Relations, which means that the two countries work closely together. Their currency is the New Zealand dollar, and their economy is usually seen as successful. However, they do face some challenges, because after they had an economical crisis in the 70s, their income dropped severely. And as a result of that, the poverty and unemployment became an increasing problem, and it still is today. Luckily, the situation is getting better in the last few years, and there are less people who are unemployed.
And now we're going to talk about culture. The New Zealand culture are actually based on British culture because the British brought them with the tradition customs from old country to New Zealand. British influence was felt in culinary area, with New Zealand's cooking based almost exclusive on Britons. It is thanks to European immigrants arriving after the Second World War. After the Second World War, that fish and chips, meat and tuwag, cakes, puddings, sandwiches, and cup of tea have been augmented by variation in diet. The pie, though, is still a popular affair, and a survey in 2001 found that fish and chips was the most popular fast food, despite the advent of KFC, Pizza Hut, McDonald's, and even the hamburgers, which found its way to New Zealand in 1960s. New Zealand has Britain to thanks for Phantomese, church music, including Christmas carols, and music events such as prom music festival, and concerts in parks. New Zealand got very interested in soccer and horse racing. Soccer got popular after the Second World War, and horse racing got popular in 1800s. New Zealand are proud to be one of the British colonies and are very loyal to the Queen and the country. But it's not only British culture in New Zealand, it's also Maori culture. Maori culture is an inextricably part of New Zealand's identity. As original inhabitants, they are known as Tanga Venua, people of the land. Although their name is derived from Maori, which means children of heaven. Having originated in Polynesia, they brought with them rich culture of region, where song, dance, and art and oratorical skills are significant, especially as there was no written language at the time. Their relationship with the environment and their belief in deities and spirits have given rise to a set of belief systems that are inherent in the Maori social structuring of tapu, meaning sacred or holy. The Maori tradition of carving used for adorning important wooden buildings and canoes is significant as the fashioning of stone into tools and ornaments. The purpose of the carving is not only decorative, but also to reflect the deep respect in which ancestors are held. Since 1500, the practice of tattooing has been an integral part of Tahitian culture, from which Maori originated. It's also significant in Maori culture. The word tattoo derives from tatu, meaning open wound.
Social conditions. The life expectancy in New Zealand is 81 years old, which proves that they are a well-developed country. The country ranks in the top in health status. They also rank above average in environmental quality, personal security, housing, education. But they rank below average in income and wealth. New Zealand was the first country in the world to let women vote. This happened in 1893. They are also one of the countries in the world to have the most women working in the government. And also in education, women outperform men.
Traditionally, the Maori people was spread all over New Zealand, but this has changed throughout the years. Nowadays, they have become a minority, and despite of their rapid growth, they only comprise about 7% of the population. As the years has passed, the Maori people has managed to adapt more to the modern society of New Zealand. Especially their economical basis has changed. From a simple subsistence type agriculture with fishing and old-fashioned work to modern farming and industrial and urban employment. The Maori culture is filled with lots of traditions and is strongly influenced by the Western culture. Maori poetry is especially important in their culture. With this in mind, very few people are entitled to call themselves Maori. This is because many have cut themselves out completely from the culture and become completely merged with the other New Zealanders. And many Maori people don't even know their Maori language. But for the great majority, Maori Tonga, the Maori way of doing things, is still highly significant in social and especially in ceremonial affairs. The Maori people has actually been treated with respect because they got equal rights with British citizenships, unlike the Aboriginals from Australia.
Okay, and now we're gonna talk about the news article. We chose 3 different news articles. I chose one about a man who got shot in Charlotte in more protest against police officer. A man was shot and critically injured during a second violent night of protests in Charlotte, NC, after 2 sharply divergent accounts emerged of the death of a black man at the hands of the police. The city of Charlotte originally said on Twitter that the man was fatally shot by another civilian, but changed it to a critically shot. This during the second night of demonstrations against the death of Keith Lehman Scott, a black man who got killed by the police officer. A march of a few hundred people turned chaotic after protesters attempted to follow police in riot gear into the lobby of an uptown hotel. Officers used tear gas and then reported heard 1 shot and saw a man lying in the street near the hotel entrance. And this article was from the newzealandherald.com.nz.
My news article from New Zealand is also from the same paper, which is called the New Zealand Herald. And the article is from today, Monday the 26th of September. And it said that the Prime Minister in New Zealand, who is called John Key, condemned the latest attacks in Syria, and he wants all the nations to work together so that we can end the conflict.
And I also found a news article from the same paper, and this was about the cyclone Vincent that began its devastating rampage through Fiji. And an Oakland man began working out a way to get emergency supplies to those in need. And he knew that they needed international help because the cyclone would cause further damage. So Mr. Ross raised $48,000 and saved and helped a large amount of the village.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye!